Hey there, Scorpio rising. How you doing? So this is a forecast taking you from the astrological start of the new year right the way up to the astrological start of the next new year. So it's March 20th, 2026 to March 20th, 2027, from equinox to equinox. And it's either spring or autumn, according to which hemisphere you're in. Now, I think this is a really special time. And obviously, giving you a sort of heads up for a whole year ahead is actually quite an involved thing, and we can look at your astrological year ahead in so many different ways. But what I wanted to do was really talk about the overall themes, because I think if you've got the themes, you can start to kind of dream into it, start to feel into it, and start to make little course corrections along the way if you so choose. So what I'm going to do is break all of this down really by looking at the positions of the slower moving planets, the nodes, and then also talk about some of the most vibrant, we could say, and active positions of planets in this year ahead. So I'm going to start off with the nodes and really pick up on the story that we're coming into this new year with. So the North Node went into the sign of Pisces in early 2025. And since then, it's been really highlighting this fifth house part of your chart, which is absolutely about creativity. It's about what you're birthing. It's, it can even coincide with starting a family or having things going on with your children. I mean, this is a place that lifts us up and where we get really passionate. And it can also absolutely coincide with a new love coming in. And so I guess how I'm going to describe this is representing a time when how do I have more passion is a really, really big question that you've considered. And so in doing this can be quite a single-minded feeling of achievement. You know, this is something, obviously, if you're in a relationship or if you're having a baby or raising children, you may well be doing that with somebody else. But when I mean by single-minded, I mean it's something that absolutely feels really close and personal, like something you're creating that has your signature all over it. It's not something that you're co-creating with a whole group of people. That's very much about where your South Node has been in the 11th house. But this is about you taking on something and really feeling into your own joy and your own passion. Another way of putting this is really since the beginning of 2025, you've really taken responsibility for your own joy and the consideration of it. So if you haven't had enough joy, it probably will still have been on your mind. And the other, the flip side of that is how can I have more joy? But joy, passion, self-expression, your creativity, owning your creativity, all of those would have been pretty big themes. Now we're coming to the last part of this nodal position, and on July the 26th this year, the North Node is going to go into the sign of Aquarius and into your fourth house. Should say I'm using a whole sign model to make this forecast. If when you look at your birth chart, you've got Scorpio and also the Sagittarius symbol in your first house, then it's really worth also listening to the Sagittarius forecast too. Anyway, the North Node, as it goes into your fourth house, starts bringing up all sorts of things to do with stability and to do with the home and family. Like, what lessons have you been learning about the home and family? What things need sharpening up at home? Where have you left things wide open? And so, like the North Node, wherever he's going, he's giving us a few challenges. He's helping us see, are we on track in this part of, am I on track in this part of my life? And so in terms of, if you haven't had enough joy, enough passion, enough self-expression, most likely the challenges coming into your world have been very much around that. The focus is going to change, into your home, into your family, and into a really sort of intimate space. This is more about, am I stable enough for my whole life? Can I find inner contentment for my whole life? as things are right now? And if not, how or what might I change? I mean, the North Node coming down here is really underpinning your security. Now, this won't be something that foreign necessarily as a concern, because you've also had Pluto in this part of your chart for 18 months already. And I will come to Pluto a little bit later, but suffice to say, the nodal pattern is bringing up lots of things to do with your security, your home, your family. And given that eclipses also are going to be happening in this space, it's likely to bring up a lot of serious thought about where your home should be. You know, are you in the right house? Do you need to move? Is it time for a shift in the way you're living at home? Now, conversely, with the South Node moved into Virgo at the beginning of 2025, you're being reminded of all the great things that you've done with other people. And, you know, maybe, I mean, on the one hand, it's quite relaxing, and it kind of lifts you up. It gives you a bit of confidence, you know, to remember where things have gone easily with other people, you know, your naturally collaborative way of being, you know. And, you know, this is where, and this adds an extra challenge that you've been working on. Well, if it's so easy to collaborate with other people, and if, you know, if I'm an important component of collaborations in general, then why would I collaborate on something very, very unique and personal? So in many ways, this North Node and South Node balance has been getting you back into the ownership of what it is that you do, really, really encouraging you to go deeper and more internalized. Now, as the nodes change place, the South Node is going to go into your 10th house. And really, that's, I think, reminding you of what you've already really done and dusted in terms of your career. You know, like, how have you dealt with situations to do with your own authority? How have you dealt with situations to do with other people's authority? How have you stepped into authority in the past? Because where you've embraced your natural authority previously, you're being reminded about how you've got the skills for it, how you can step into it. It's not necessarily the challenge that you're really facing right now. However, I think having your own quiet inner authority that you can get things done is really going to help when the North Node comes down here, and when you need to find a calm, quiet inner authority at home. So yeah, I really do think the nodal switch is going to bring up a picture of calm authority. How can you really own the process that you're going through? Now, Jupiter, my next planet, at the start of this new year is currently in your 9th house in the sign of Cancer. He's already been there for 9 months. And during that time, he's most likely opened up lots of options for you in terms of, oh my God, it might be time for me to travel, or, oh my God, I must learn about this. You know, it's a deep dive energy, a learning energy, a teaching energy as well, but also a fascination and curiosity with the world. Jupiter loves the 9th house. And so he's going to be there until the 29th of June 2026, and then he's going to head into your 10th house. Now, Jupiter going into the 10th house is often described as an uplift. And yeah, he really can uplift you when he's in the 10th house, because he helps you have much bigger goals, much stronger and braver dreams about your success. He can also show up as a series of opportunities. I've been working with somebody who's been going through this, funnily enough, who has had a whole heap of opportunities. Now, you know, Jupiter has a 12-year cycle, so you might also find that 12 years ago, you were also having a similar uplift. However, anything that's not really working well in your career can get really inflamed. So if you've got like a situation that might be a sort of runaway embarrassment, or a runaway, like where it just feels like things are about to run away downhill really, really fast. You know, if there's something that you've just slightly dropped the ball on and it's something that you really needed to pay attention to, then Jupiter can amplify this. So it's not without risk, I would say. So with Jupiter coming into the 10th house, It's a time to make sure that the things that you are working on are really watertight so that you can absolutely build the right kind of momentum for them. And Jupiter is absolutely ideal for that. It was really fantastic for that. Now, when he goes into the sign of Leo, he's going to zoom ahead as far as 27 degrees. So he's really going to go through it. And then he's going to start this retrograde. But yeah, you're really going to go the gamut of almost the entirety of Leo in a very, very short time. Now, I've popped this dot in to represent Jupiter because during this flow, in fact, between the 19th and the 23rd of July, he's going to be at 4 degrees and he's going to make an alignment with 3 other slow-moving planets. And I think this is really important because it's going to be working and activating something in your career. But I'll come back to that in a minute. I mean, essentially, you're expanding into well-being through your achievement, through your reputation, through the uplift that's coming in. Now, Saturn and Neptune are also important to pay a little bit of attention to. Last year, they were dancing in between the cusp between your 5th and 6th house. Now they are fully in your 6th house. And, you know, one of the themes to watch out for, and you might have picked this up for a few months of 2025, is how to bring your life into a better balance, so much so that your energy levels are really stable and secure. Like the 6th house really shows us where we're managing our life, you know, and where our life kind of takes a story. You know, this is a place where we have a lot of review, you know, where we're measuring our performance. And so, you know, how you manage your money, how you manage your home and house care, how you manage your health and your diet, and, you know, exercising your body or working your body in some way, how it all fits together. And then, you know, outside of that, like fitting in the kids, you know, your partner, your friendships, your social life, and all of that, looking after parents, maybe, all of that, how it all fits together. You know, the 6th house I see as being a planner, you know, like this huge planner, and you've just got to make it all work. And so Saturn is very, I would say, quite comfortable in this part of the chart. He brings in some discipline, and in the sign of Aries, boy, oh boy, is he wanting to get absolutely settled and help you measure what you need and what you don't need. But you've also got Neptune coming in here, and this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I'll make it sound like you've won the lottery. A lot of people probably don't feel like that because Neptune brings in he brings in a kind of a confusion. He brings in an abundance of creativity. He brings in an abundance of like the desire to make things kind of merge, and situations might become unclear. So I would say, where is spirit taking shape? You know, the spirit is the Neptune side of things. And so you might find that you're not wanting to be quite as specific as you have been in the past. Maybe you're wanting your life to feel like it has a purpose, and that everything that you're doing in your life is much more in alignment with your spirituality and your goals. And so I do think this is bringing in an energy of reviewing what you have to do and making sure it's really in alignment with your morality, in alignment with your philosophical and spiritual leanings, your ideologies. How is your life really supporting all the things that you really feel in your heart? Because if it's not, it's going to become a bit of a problem, because you just won't want to do it. You won't want to, like, why would you want to measure and make a life that doesn't feel like it's really yours? Why would you want to make that work? So that's something to work on. It's like realigning your life to really match who you're becoming or who you're remembering yourself to be. Now, there's another thing that's worth focusing on or paying some attention to, and that is the 6th house is really associated with health and our energy levels. And both Saturn and Neptune are known to really sap the hell out of health. You know, they're you know, Saturn in particular can drain us and make us feel very cold, very rigid. We might not feel as flexible. You know, Saturn also works on our bones and our posture, and you know, where we're really not paying attention to that, we could kind of get bent out of shape. But Neptune is and I'm not a medical astrologer here. I'm just it's like sharing what I know and what I've experienced in my own life, but also from, you know, the world of clients. You know, I really see that Neptune is really working on the sort of mysteries, the mystery elements, the things that maybe nobody's got a description for, the things that feel difficult to diagnose, you know, where there's something doesn't quite feel right, you can't put your finger on it. And also the internal waters, you know, Neptune is the god of the ocean, and so your internal waters, you know, are they flowing? Is there a lovely flow in your body? Does everything work well? And so, yeah, to me, this is really describing the nuts and bolts, like the flow of your energy, which, you know, I'm ascribing to the energy of Neptune, and then, you know, the structure of your body, very much about Saturn. So I think there are probably things that you could do. I mean, if you were to combine the two, something like Tai Chi or yoga could actually be quite helpful, because you are working on your posture and your movement, but more in a flowing way. So it's worth paying some attention to that. Both of them, when they show up together somewhere, they can have a slightly depressing energy, because, you know, Neptune at his worst really doesn't know where he is, and kind of wants to get lost in the ocean of emotions. And Saturn, you know, is so flipping practical that he kind of kills everything. You know, he dampens the energy, the natural high. And so another thing as well, you know, if you're doing something restorative, which is absolutely what I'd recommend, anything that's restorative is going to lift you up and counteract the sort of dampening effect of both Saturn and Neptune. So that's just a couple of thoughts. That this is not me saying you're going to get ill, just so you know. I'm definitely not predicting that. However, I do think some observance of keeping yourself fit as a fiddle and staying buoyant and staying, you know, released and feeling great in yourself, I think is really worth doing. Yeah, and so underpinning it all, I would just say it's like, am I on track? Is my life purposeful? And where it's purposeful, most likely everything will flow into place. You will know how to do it. And it does look like discipline, like a light, healthy discipline that feels regular, that feels really in alignment with you. That's going to help you really make some difference. So I hope, and again, this isn't a medical diagnosis at all, so I hope that's helpul in guiding you. I mean, that's going to be transforming your life, you know, in quite a steady way. Now, talking about healing, Chiron, who's known as the wounded healer, and he can also show where there are situations in our body, but also I think of Chiron more as a mind, body, soul situation. Chiron is going to be moving out of your sixth house, which I think is going to be beneficial. Having him in the sixth can absolutely bring your attention to a wound that you've not like repaired or sorted out. So when he goes into the seventh, I think it's going to immediately feel like a relief in your body. And, you know, he's going to be going into your seventh and bringing the energy of seeing the vulnerabilities in you in terms of your relationships. Now, he's only dipping his head into Taurus for 3 months. He's going in on the 19th of June. He's coming back out on the 18th. Trust me, you know, I do want you to know that everybody has Chiron, Saturn, Neptune somewhere in their chart. So we're all working with those energies, and there are gifts and also challenges with each of these energies. So, you know, as Chiron comes through, one of the things you might notice is a feeling of vulnerability, you know, about an aspect of your relationships. Now, is it to do with security? I mean, it may well have to do with security, with longevity, with comfort. Are you experiencing enough comfort in your relationship, or is it a little bit too jarring? The reason I say that is because the sign of Taurus absolutely wants comfort, wants ease, wants regularity, wants that feeling of security. So to me, this is just showing that maybe there's not as much ease and comfort and gentleness. Your nervous system might actually be picking up on this kind kind of nervousness behind the scenes about your relationships and how well you're relating. Now, one of the things with Taurus is it's encouraging you to get outdoors. And like with Chiron and Taurus, to me, that's saying get outdoors together, enjoy the fresh air together, have rituals, I mean, not rituals necessarily, but routines that allow you to get outside and be in nature. The natural focus is really going to assist you in understanding your relationships. You might ask yourself, what is nature teaching me about relationships right now? And go for a walk and see how the animals work together or not, see how the plants grow together or not. See what you notice, about the relatedness of nature. To me, that's nature is a huge healer in terms of your relationships right now. Now, Chiron will be coming over into Taurus after the start of next year's equinox. So it's something that you're going to be moving into. So it's giving you a heads up that anywhere where you might not feel safe in your relationship is going to become a big theme. But it's giving you a little chance to test it out. It's like a try before you buy. Sadly, you still have to buy it. It just happens a bit later on down the line. Now, the other thing with Chiron, he always shows us where there are mentors and coaches and helpers. There are guides by the side. And so this can also show where you might be taking more of a therapeutic approach in your relationships, with somebody, some amazing coach, guide, relationship guru. In fact, that might be you, because also when we've healed everything in a particular area, we often become that coach or guide ourselves. So don't be surprised if you feel that you're being pulled into a support situation. You're being pulled into a moment where you feel like you're helping others. A final thought, and I only know this because I've got Chiron in my 7th house in my marriage birth chart. Chiron in the 7th house, when my husband and I got married, lots of people around us, like our close friends, people very close to us, experienced pain. They were going through pain. And so we were, as a married couple, experiencing other people's pain. And so Chiron coming into the 7th can also show not just relationship pain, but where the people you're related to are maybe having their own sort of existential crisis. And so again, you may well be pulled into their world of pain. And so maybe one of the learnings is, how do I support people without taking on the pain? Because Chiron doesn't have to be about the pain. And so this is also at the same time helping you become a lot more resilient. Moving on to Uranus then, he did have a trial go in Gemini last year, from the 7th of July, I think, until October. And now he's going in to Gemini on the 26th of April, and he's going to be there for the long haul. So he's going to be entering into your 8th house. Now, the 8th house has a lot to do with a deepening relationship with the people around you. Commonly the 8th house is associated with sex, death, taxes. And I think that really shortchanges the 8th house. Is so much more than that. I see it as a house of, where your internal psychology really enlivens and you become really aware of where you've got sticky patches, where you're not talking to yourself or honoring your own needs, where you've taken on other people's judgments of you as true, even if they're not true, you've still taken them on. I see it as a place where we sometimes take on other people's values. This is how we value ourselves and how we bring in our money. Over here, this is how other people value you. And now you might be carrying the load of that. So I think it's quite ancestral. Our family matrix really shows up here. Obviously this is our lived family right now, and this is our kind of old family, so our birth family, issues to do with your parents, your siblings, your great grandparents from I don't know, Azerbaijan or wherever it is, family lineage, inheritance, emotional inheritance, psychological inheritance, and actual physical inheritance. Also, fights about imbalances between you and your partner and who's earning what and who's bringing in more. So there is a real strong energy of contribution here. where are you in balance with it and where aren't you in balance with it? And for instance, if you're contributing a lot more, is it because of an underlying psychological issue, like I'm talking about, a psychological judgment of yourself passed down by one of your well-meaning but a pain in the ass and not very evolved relative that might have said, the trouble with you is blah blah blah, or well, if you were a good child, you'd have done this, so anywhere where you've taken on someone else's awful opinion of yourself, you might be over contributing. Can you see how that works? So Uranus here is going to bring a lot of insight into your life. He's not going to do it all at once. I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, he's got a long drive through this. This is like driving from one part of America right down to the other side. It's going to take him years to get through this house. And so, Uranus here is going to, he's not sprinting, but he is going to give you plenty of opportunities to see where you have held a belief about yourself that has manifested in how you, in how you are valued by others and how you value yourself and what you're taking on for the team. So a really good question here is, what if, and these are access consciousness, because I really like access consciousness. What if the wrongness of me is actually the rightness of me? So if you've been judging yourself all this time, you might find that something you've been told is wrong about you is actually one of your super skills. Like, for instance, growing up, I was, you're a redhead, you must be an angry redhead. and you must be trouble. Which is ridiculous to associate that with a hair color. But like growing up on the under the specter of it, I became a massive people pleaser because I didn't want people to believe that I could be a problem. So you see how it works. So yeah, there's going to be some enlightenment around this. And then Pluto, he's been in the fourth house for ages. He's causing a revolution at home, a quiet revolution, maybe really physically felt. Maybe it brings up some fear about the change at home. It brings a kind of death and dying energy to the home. Not to say that anyone's dying, but the relationship with the home, the relationship with the family, a part of it is dying. Wherever Pluto goes, there's a death of an ego at some level. Something that you were so certain in, needs to pass so that something fresh and new can come up. Very much linked to the seasons. You're in a season now where some aspect of your home needs to die down so that something fresh can take shape and can grow and sustain, because the old frameworks do break down. And so this can be a time in this, year ahead. You may well really feel this, oh my God, it's all breaking down. But, Pluto and Uranus are going to work together really. Sorry, I'm just saying yes to a coffee. Pluto and Uranus are really going to bring about a regeneration of how you feel about yourself and your role within the family. And then at the same time, you're coming into a time where you're working more efficiently, but with more heart on the things that really matter. And then you've got the chance to really lift yourself up because of it. So all of these I've spoken about: Pluto, Neptune, Saturn's nearby, Uranus and Jupiter, they're all going to be exactly at 4 degrees between the 19th and the 23rd of July. To put it in context, I am not aware of another time very much like that, where it's so perfectly. We've had a few similar but not exact moments, with 3 sextile planets. I can't remember one of 4 that are all so perfectly matched. And, this can happen with, the faster moving planets. Quite easily they can slide into place, but we're talking about slow moving planets. So this is very exact and very perfect. And I'm calling this a circuit of inspiration because the air and the fire is all about the flow and also about the inspiration. And so there's a big inspiration like coming up in this year ahead, taking you from your home. You're changing views about yourself. You're changing routines about yourself that's changing the way you're seen on the outside. Really lifting you up in the eyes of the world, but mostly and more importantly, in your own eyes. You're creating a good reputation for yourself. So this is super strong. I love this as a potential. So here's another few times that are important as well. So the new moon in Aries, which is less than a month away on the 16th, 17th of April, there's going to be 7 planets in the sign of Aries. That if, again, this is something else I've really not seen. 5 planets, yeah, 7. Oh my God. So this is a very, very intense, April is going to be super intense, but mid-April is where it really starts kicking in. So the theme of getting the balance right in your house, in your life, and in your health is really important. I absolutely recommend, given the level of Aries things right now, that you take control of your health as soon as you can. But like, for instance, if you're exercising or doing something health related, that you don't overdo it, which is absolutely an Aries tendency, because the Aries tendency of overdoing things can also lead to a sudden crash. Obviously, you don't want that. So how can you take light, gentle, but firm control over your life in a sort of protective, precautional way, very much over this next month? How can you lead your body gently into a revolution of body and life? To me, this is really important just to pay attention to. I guess what I'm saying is you don't need complications on the outside of your life. So, if I was in your shoes, I kind of am actually, because a lot of my 6th house is actually in the sign of Aries. I've got Scorpio rising as well. From my perspective, I'm cutting down on everything that's unnecessary, that's going to pull me away from getting things sorted. To me, I'm seeing April as a giant but gentle and persistent spring clean, and that's how I think I'm going to help myself the best. Then we've got the full moon in the 1st house on the 1st of May. Full moons tend to make us feel very emotional, and it can sometimes feel like there's too much happening. So I would say a good week before the full moon, start clearing some of the things that are unnecessary. If you already know that's not necessary, I don't need that. Oh my God, why have I still got that? Let it go. Because, as things coalesce and whiz around you, which is what happens around the time of the full moon, especially in your 1st house, because it's so personal to you, then let go of things you don't need before the swirling begins. Much better to have the things on your radar that are absolutely most important around the time of the full moon. So what's on your radar comes sharply into focus, and you can deal with it and work with it and uplift with it and birth it and use that energy. What you don't want is all those distractions. So manage them out. Let someone else deal with them. And then conversely, there's a new moon in the 1st house on the 9th of November. So it's a way off, but this is a real reboot time, a reset time. And can you imagine what will happen if you get a real grip on your health and your life in April, and then by the end of July, there's some real movements forwards because of the great framework you've set up for yourself. And then around the 9th of November, from that new moon in your 1st house, the natural evolution of that is, wow, I really had this big reset of everything to do with my life. So I think this is a very optimistic one for you, Scorpio. Have a good one. Now, my final thoughts, if you like the way I look at these forecasts and you would love for me to show the same amount of love and care and attention to your own chart, then just consider working with me. Invite me to work with you. Just click on the Calendly link below in the description field, and you can just book directly into my diary in any available space, and we can take it from there. Very easy. If you love, my forecasts and you want more of me, but don't want to pay for it, you want to just like try before you buy and enjoy being part of a community, then come and check out my free community on the School platform. It's www.school, that's SKOOL.com/Feel Good Astrology. And you'll get extra forecasts on a daily basis covering the whole week and loads of extras. And you'll be in a space with really cool people. The community is everything, and we've got some lovely people in there. So that's my invitation to you. So have a beautiful year ahead. Happy new astrological year, and I'll catch up with you real soon. Bye for now.